Hallelujah, the Zoom is on. But does Zoom start? Oh, but we have a lot of people in Zoom, but I don't have the owl working. It's sad. Hi guys on Zoom, can you hear me? Problem is the owl doesn't want to turn on. So worst case scenario, you just won't have, you will not be seen. Because I can't deal with it right now. It doesn't allow for select. It doesn't let me. It doesn't recognize the owl. Let me see. I'll leave it connected.
Hi, Nancy and Ron. Hi, Donna.
Yeah, it is connected. It's connected.
Hi.
Oh.
There you go. Yeah, but it's not. Oh, here we go.
There we go. It's working.
This is exciting.
Oh, here they are, the burgers.
Yeah. Okay. That's exciting. Let me find the other thing that we need here.
Girl, good.
This.
Be heard, so she loves Beth David actually, but maybe not anymore.
All right, this is it. Basically, huge nationwide change. One that's more just a regional thing. A dozen counties around Long Well, somebody needs to come and check us.
For today?
Huh?
For what is the next license?
Yeah. I'm used to seeing you with the clipboard and you're here.
That's for Sunday. Because there's somebody, Wednesday.
Is it to know who's in the building or is it just to protect the numbers? So that
Yeah. Because I know if there's somebody.
We have a trap door for that. Let me go ahead and move the corner.
But it's so many, so all the kids come to school.
There's nothing projected. Well, I went to the baby naming. I never saw any of this. I mean, that's okay. But, I think the computers working.
We did have a couple weeks ago.
Oh. You did that?
I was there and I'm big sitting with people I've never met before.
Maybe they haven't. Okay.
It's fine. And I also said something.
All right. I think we're almost ready here. It's exciting. So many things. It's already the end of the year. We were only born yesterday. It's already the end of the year. Okay. Oh, I have one question. Yeah. What's that? Yeah, Ehyeh. What is Ehyeh?
Yeah,
Yeah, Adonai is the physical, is that right? The root-
yeah, right. So the three levels are
Yeah,
physical,
yes,
which would be equivalent from Ma and its world that it creates.
okay,
Yud He Vav He, consciousness, inner world, soul. Ehyeh, take it one level above, kind of like the divine source. The root the root of manifestation.
is that the observing the observer?
So if you go with the observer, yeah, so that thing that is as deep as we can see, where our psyche, right? So the heavens,
Hmm?
the heaven is our basically our consciousness, our inner self, as much,
Okay.
right? And the earth is the material world.
Yeah.
So they say that a lot of the teaching that we've been working on now, right, is the end of heaven above, the end of heaven below. So that which is our conscious self has is bordering two zones. One is the material world from us, which we're part of, right? Because we're part of the material world, but then there's part of the material world which allegedly isn't us. It's the world in which we live. So there's a border there, a meeting point. That's the end of heaven below. Similarly, the end of heaven above is our meeting point with the divine source that creates our soul, or from which our soul arrives according to this tradition. But just like the border, the margin between the lower end of heaven is not clear cut. Similarly, with the end of heaven above, where there's only a question, not a word, not a concept, and above that there's not even a question. It's just we are part of the divine source. Right? There's a little margin there where we mix, just like in the seashore. Okay? So Ehyeh symbolizes in this triad. Doesn't mean that in other contexts you cannot have these names in totally different.
Sure.
Because, for example, even the name Yud He Vav He, which does the name Yud He Vav He, the tetragram, really deserves more attention than we gave it this year, because even that, the Yud is actually equivalent with Ehyeh, and the He, in other words, that whole manifestation exists within the Yud. There's many traditions, very rich. It has to do with the tetragram. However, in this triad right now, we're trying to learn. So Ehyeh is, why does it symbolize that realm of source? Because it's Ehyeh, what is always becoming. And because Ehyeh is whatever is becoming, the Aleph is kind of symbolizes the beginning, which before that duality, so it's just a pure divinity, before there's even the separation of creator and created. So the ability to, so the ability to kind of locate that from within the Ehyeh, which is the eternal river of becoming, which is one of the reasons why Ehyeh got in that triad, got that level, to represent that level.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I don't know if the answer was more confusing than the question, but often that's how it is. Right. So so let's do this in an orderly fashion, because as you know, Kabbalah is, as you've already seen, the Zohar Kabbalah is completely unorganized. So maybe we can try to pretend to have some order, so we can start by singing, etc. So we'll be singing this song now for the last time in ROSH-ESTHER, since next year we'll have a different song, and I'll talk a little bit about what I want to do today. Maybe is learn a little bit more, but I also want to kind of like for us to like exactly like we're asking, to be able to process and ask questions and kind of summarize what we've learned and see where we are, and also maybe talk a little about next year and everything that is being planned right now. And all right. Ben Adam, Ale Mala, Ale Mala, Ben Adam, Ale Mala, Ben Adam, Ale Mala, Ale Mala, Ben Adam. כי כוח אז לך, יש לך כנפי רוח, יש לך כנפי רוח, כנפי נשרים אבירים, אל תכחש בם, הם יכחשו לך. דרוש אותם דרוש בן אדם וימצאו לך מיד. בן אדם עלה למעלה עלה למעלה בן אדם עלה למעלה כי כוח אז לך יש לך כנפי רוח, יש לך כנפי רוח, כנפי נשרים אבירים, אל תכחש בם, פן יכחשו לך, דרוש אותם דרוש בן אדם, וימצאו לך מיד. Okay, thank you for singing with me. Beautiful singing here. Let's just meditate a little bit. We do it by the book and see what happens to us. So we're going to go into our little meditation exercise. Hopefully we are sitting in a way that is conscious, meaning that we are able to put our feet on the ground, feel grounded by Mother Earth, sit as straight as we can. Make sure that our body is not leaning in a way that is unnecessary to one side, that we're not holding some kind of tension in some limb or something like that, that we're just sitting in the way that is most centered and focused. And that we are being aware of our breath. As we breathe in and out our body, being grateful for this ability to breathe oxygen. Letting ourselves become a little more conscious, a little more focused, centered, and calm with each breath. We notice the sensations in our body. We notice our emotional state of being. We notice the train of thoughts that is always appearing in our consciousness. just observing who we are in this very moment in time without too much judgment. Probably all good, or mostly good. And if there's something that's challenging or that sits heavy with our heart or our mind, that's probably also all good because it's part of our learning experience and evolvement and transformation processes in this world. So just notice what's happening. Since this is our last class, we can kind of like acknowledge that we're ending a chapter in our journey here and maybe reflect a little bit on how it's been and what we've learned or experienced or were challenged by this class. Not necessarily about particular teachings or issues, but more like the feel of it. And where do we find ourselves now towards the end and before the summer break? And every time we think too much or feel too much or sense too much and our consciousness wanders away, we can always center it back on our breath. About being very present in this very moment. And as much as possible, turn our focus inwards in the sense that we observe the observer. Directing our consciousness towards the source of our being, where our sense of self is constantly being produced and created. The end of heavens above, as it's called. And I invite us now to say the Shema together, a moment of unity. Through all the realms, all the rungs, the inward, the outward. the heaven, the earth, everything, as much as we can. Say together. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. I'm going to say the blessing. I'm studying Torah together, making a Kabbalah intention for this being an hour of enlightenment, of study, of transformation, but to send good energies, good blessings to whoever in our world around us, whether we know them or not, who is in need of blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asot b'divrei Torah. Okay, so here we are at the end of our semester. Very exciting. So, what a journey. Let me share the screen here with the Zoom people. Share screen. All right, so we started with a song. Just a little reminder of what we've been through. We started with a song. Then we actually learned about this triad of holy names representing three realms, right, that exists within our reach. Adonai representing our encounter with the physical world, because we say Adonai, right? That's what appears, we hear. Then, but when you say Adonai, the book actually says Yud-Heh Vav-Heh, Havaya. So that's what we imagine inwards. So we know now there's two realms. Us, the physical body, and wherever it lives. There's a consciousness, soul, whatever, thoughts, emotions, or whatever it is, it's not physical, but to us, they're one and the same, but they're also not one and the same, right? So always be aware of the fact that there's these two realms, Yud-Heh Vav-Heh and Adonai. And the Kabbalists testify, they say, you know, this is not the end of the story. We are aware that there's also there's also the divine source that creates the soul and our consciousness, that creates or eventually manifests as our physical being in the world and the way we act in the world. Right? There's different levels to the story. And, you know, one can experience that as something that is not theoretical at all. These are actually level that we feel are part of us. Right? I went to this therapist and she told me most of my friends, they only try to heal people by telling them things that talk to their cognitive mind. But I realized that actually everything is emotion based. It's not just cognitive, it's also emotional. So really? I think I understand that, but in my book, it's not just thoughts and emotions. There's also another level, which is from which all these thoughts and emotions come from. That's the spiritual level. That's a connection, again, to the Kabbalists call Ehyeh, or the divine source that is within us, right? And therefore, there are methods of psychology that are transpersonal psychology. There are, people who. So, what is the self? What is the theory of the self that we encounter? The Kabbalists, like in many other faith traditions, offer that this is who we are. We have access to all these three levels, and they actually all are integrated. And they're all human. And as to your question, from the other day, they're also all divine. So God is not necessarily just above or within. God is actually this entire system and all the dynamic interrelation of the energy that flows from presumably the highest to the lowest, from the most inward to the most external. It's not really the way to describe the flow of the energy is more like the number 8 or infinity sign, right? It goes in and out like every breath, and there's no hierarchies actually. Just like Rabbi Elazar described, remember, you go up the rungs to know, and then you're all back to reality. There's nothing to learn, and there's nothing to find out. All right.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead, ask me questions, because I don't know what to interest you, yeah.
All three of those words, this is, I'm checking my understanding, are in the Torah, right?
Mhm.
And the first one too.
Yep.
And then when we read them, we just say Adonai for all of them.
Well, not necessarily. So oftentimes, so Ehyeh only appears. So the meditation is, I'll get to the Torah. They're all in the Torah. They're all names of God, them and others, like Elohim, and they're all in the Torah. Ehyeh only appears at the burning bush. I think. Only Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh. I am what I am. I'll become what I become.
So when that portion is read, how
Ehyeh.
is it chanted?
Ehyeh.
It is.
It is.
Because
The
we
Kabbalists-
do Adonai is Adonai.
Right. So mostly, very, very common is Yud Hey Vav Hey,
Right.
but it would be read Adonai. The Kabbalists borrowed the name Ehyeh from the burning bush and put it in that system because they were looking for a third name to represent the highest level. Right? So,
Okay, that's why I wasn't
mhm.
familiar with.
yeah. So, but when we bless, so the meditation is really, it's a meditation for every moment in life. Right? So, but the meditation is every time we make a blessing, which in Judaism, presumably, it says, Chayav Adam Lomar Mea Brachot B'Cholim. A person must say 100 blessings every day. Meaning that you have to say a lot of blessings. What are blessings really? They're little moments of consciousness when you kind of like become conscious of this whole thing. Don't just, right? And actually, there's like an orthodox way of like, what are the 100 blessings? So they say when you say the Shacharit prayer, so a lot of them are in the prayer. If you say like the Amidah, there's a lot of Baruch Atah Adonai, Baruch Atah Magen Avraham U'Fukei Tzara, that's one. Chayei Kol, that's two. Atzah Kadosh Baruch Atah, and then the Orthodox prayer has more. So a lot of those 100 blessings actually are in the prayers that you say 3 times daily. And then when you eat, every time you eat, you say a blessing. Every time you go to the bathroom, you say a blessing. There's a whole system of blessings that you basically just fill your days with at least 100 every day. As Reform Jews, again, we don't have to say these exact ones, but the idea of having many moments when you say Baruch Atah Adonai, this and that, moment of consciousness. Birkot HaShachar, but blessings every day, when you wake up, when you stretch out of bed, when you open your eyes, each one of them is a blessing. Right, to teach us being grateful, to teach us appreciation, to teach us consciousness, mindfulness. This is Jewish mindfulness, if you want to give it, brand it as such, right? And so every time we say a blessing, we actually exercise with experiencing the 3 levels. We say Adonai, we become aware of the sound, the vibrations, and the external world in which they are being, vibrated in. So that's my body and beyond, my existence in this world. I imagine Yud Hey Vav Hey. I say Adonai, I imagine Yud Hey Vav Hey, because that's how it says. I become conscious that there is an inner world that is energetic. It's an energy. It's right. Yet I also send, a spaceship. I send an arrow. I send a link to Ehyeh. Oh, God is present here, and it's creating the world. right? There's directionality here. The world is created by the divine, is our inner world is created, is our outside world is created, and then it feeds back the other way. There's two motions. In Qigong, they call it yin and yang. This motion and that. Okay, there's the two energies, they feed from each other. So, where they go exactly. Right, and then we learn that Ehyeh comes from the burning bush, and that is what we said before. It's an aleph of unity, the pure divine, and Ehyeh, becoming. And we learned this verse, Ehyeh asher Ehyeh, I will be what I be, which comes from the burning bush story. We actually read the burning bush, and we saw that it was from there. Here. And God says to Moses, Ehyeh asher Ehyeh, send me to release you from slavery in Egypt. It's with the power of Ehyeh that Moses could work wonders, because understanding that part of our system is a connection to the divine creator allows you to actually make miracles. According to this tradition, Moses was very connected to these inner higher realms, which is what allowed Moses to kind of deconstruct reality from the strongest empire in the world and come and face the strongest king of the region and change the reality completely and release and liberate the people. It's a metaphor for anything that we'd like to change and liberate and transform in our lives or in our whatever, it's whether it's personal or in the work, in the society in which we live. Right. So then we started learning about the different names that we learned about and how this manifests itself in the Kabbalistic tradition, very, very much part of the culture. In many synagogues, you'll go and you'll see this picture, or many different versions of that, which is kind of like a mantra, or not a mantra. It's more like a yantra, if you know what that is. In other words, it's a visual meditation aid, right? With basically you with the two names Adonai and Ehyeh being interwoven, because that's actually how it is. It's not separate, right? It's all those names are kind of like integrated with one another, and all those letters here also it's more elaborate than that. There's for example, the one here on the left hand side, you see Bet Shin Kaf Mem Lamed Vav Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto L'Olam Va'ed. All right, all these things here have it's actually coded for different names of God, for different meditations, for different prayers, but the main idea is Shiviti Havaya L'Negdi Tamid, like what we sing in the Shiviti Havaya L'Negdi Tamid. I always put the name of Havaya in front of me. I always meditate upon this name. Okay, but it's not something amorphic or abstract or transcendental. It's just saying I'm aware that there's these levels of existence and that there's always an energy flowing between them. How do I unify them? How do I make the energy flow? Yeah, that's what we do in this tradition. All right, here's another example, another Shiviti. You can put one of those in your house if you want. Okay, maybe you can put it in the synagogue somewhere, right? It's an aid to meditate on God. Basically, you can put that in front of your face when you meditate in the morning. When you open your eyes, you see this, and okay, kind of like that. So then we kind of shifted to the word Elohim, which is another one that appears in the Torah and the Bible often, like in the beginning, Bereshit bara Elohim. In the beginning, God, Elohim, created. What is Elohim? What is God? Right? So then we started to learn the Kabbalistic deconstruction of Ele and me, right? Which becomes a question, me and Ele, right? And still, you didn't know about the Zohar, you didn't know the text, then I brought you the text, right? We learned that there's who are these, who and these. There's something that there's a question, and there's something that is, that you can actually grasp and see and perceive. Ele, these things, and a question, which is an abstract question, who, And then we learned that there's me and ma, right? There's two questions, in fact. Who going inwards, what going outwards. And then we kind of, this was all preparing us to go into the Zohar, right? Then we kind of brought Prophet Isaiah, who wrote, Uma womenechem mi bara ele, who created these? Allegedly, originally, literally looking at the heavens, right? And then I taught and I said, there's a Kabbalistic tradition that when you lift up your eyes, you don't actually look outwards to the heavens, you actually roll your eyes like this inwards. Hence, meditate, become conscious of your inner world, of your inner self. Yeah? This is the Kabbalistic twisting of the literal sense always. You take a sentence, you take a verse, you alter something. You give a creative interpretation that causes the reader, or the learner, the student, or the tradition to, then they teach you something with it. So this is instead of looking outside of yourself for God to the heavens, look inside. In fact, look in any direction that you want, you will find God there. It's the entire system is God. So we are not separate from God, right? And all those parts and all those things are always divine in Kabbalah. So even atheists can live with this, because God is not something external to our experience. Maybe it's also, but we don't know because we only have our experience to rely upon. On the other hand, it can be also very spiritual because everything is divine. So everybody can agree with this. Atheists, believers, doesn't matter. Yeah.
I'm noticing something. The English translation, who created these, ?
Mm-hmm.
But in the Hebrew, there is not a question mark.
Yes, only because the question mark is a later invention. When Prophet Isaiah wrote his prophecy, question marks have not been, in fact, vowels have not been invented either, but someone did add the vowels here, but did not add the question marks.
So it's the Hebrew is more open to, it doesn't force it to be a question.
Right, and if I want it to be,
Who created these is who created these.
right, so if I want it to be more loyal to the, how do I delete this? If I want it to be, I could just delete the question.
There you go.
And if you want, but basically, yes. The fact that the original Hebrew does not have question marks, values, even punctuation, it's just the letters. If you ever look at the Torah we have here, only letters, okay, allows for much flexibility. It allows, and everybody understands that there is a question there in a literal sense. Prophet Isaiah, very simply, went out, he was in Jerusalem, he looked in the heavens, he saw the skies, there were no electricity yet, so he saw lots of galaxies, he saw the Milky Way, all right, very impressive, no light pollution. And he asked, who created these? The constellation. No question about that, but it doesn't matter. The Kabbalists look at text, scripture as revelation. So and everything vibrates to them with holiness, just like they look at reality. Similarly, everything vibrates with holiness, and therefore, you can play around with it. An answer can become a question can become an answer, it can be both. And similarly, the word Elohim, right, can be dissected into Ele and me, and so what if the order of the letters Yud and Mem is different? And it can be both Yam, a vessel, an ocean, like we saw, and a question. And by the way, then there's, they teach these, right? They teach that there's actually actually the letters themselves are a diagram or a mandala. That's the word I was looking for. A mandala for teaching the very same thing. Because this Yud Mem, the Yud being a tiny dot, go inside. The Mem being basically a square or a cube, right, if you wish, represents all directions. So they teach the same thing over and over through many channels to mess up with our brain, but for a good reason. Ooh, and people say, ooh, how can it be? How can it's so divine? Hebrew is so divine. There's the letters and the shape of the letters and the question and the answer and Isaiah, and then it's all because what they're trying to teach is not any of those diagrams or right, and then even the numeric value of Ele, which is 36, which is Vav, which is Vav is a numeric 6, but then it's basically sending in each direction 6, right? Sending an arrow in each. But the letter Vav is like a stick, like an arrow, and you send 6 of them in each direction. So all of a sudden, the numeric value of the letters also plays out. It's all it's not science; it's creativity. They just figured out these things. Why? Because think about the kind of soul, or the kind of mind that invents these kind of right. Something is some spiritual truth wants to come out, and they're just just like maybe we'll write a poem, we'll make a play, we'll we'll compose a melody, we'll draw a drawing, we'll use like a multidisciplinary art to portray some kind of an inner truth that we wish to convey, right? The Kabbalists are taking the scripture and they will, again, disintegrate it and take it to its atoms, to letters, to shapes of letters, to their numeric value, to deconstructing grammar and syntax to convey the secret that they want us to awaken to, which is notice yourself.
You hear artists will say that all the time, painters or musicians, when they create something, it's just, it comes from within. Like I don't know how I did it. It just, it flows through them.
Yes, I know, and the little bit of an artist that I am, or used to be, I can being a bit of a composer of sacred music, and other music, I can testify to that. It's not that there's not, there are methods to kind of like be more creative, or you can. What a few times in my life it's happened. By the way, feel free to do that. I was commissioned to write a piece. So maybe someone even gave me a text, or for sure gave me a deadline. Like, it has to be ready for this event. This rabbi in New Jersey is retiring. You want to surprise him with one of your melodies. You have 2 months to compose this thing, and even it has to be like for choir arrangement and everything. So I had a deadline. So you have to be creative, right? So there are ways to go about it. There's exercises, there's methods, but in the end, when it comes. Right, somehow all of a sudden this is not good. Oh, this is not right. So, but deeper than that, I don't think it's just for artists. I think that these kind of traditions, all our lives that are manifested every day, are created by these everything that we are. The Kabbalists would maintain is created like that. Why are we this person, that person, making these choices, those choices? Doing what we do in the world, right? It doesn't all, maybe it's coming from a place that's less or more conscious or connected. And sometimes I think you see a lot of, and this is something that maybe we can learn further in next year, is that a lot of the work of the Kabbalists is not in the light, but in the shadow. Because, if this system works perfect, then the connections between, if these lines are flowing, the inside and the outside, the divine and the material and everything that is between, which is us, is all wonderfully flowing, and we're all connected, and there should be no war, no hunger, no fights, no, you know what I mean? In other words, everything should be wonderful. A lot of the time, acknowledging that in our experience, there's a lot of blockages and a lot of things that don't flow. Right? So the actual work of the mystic or the Kabbalist would be in the inner world of where am I obstructing the flow rather than letting it flow? Is it my mind that's holding? Is it some kind of an emotional pain? Is it my body that isn't allowing me? Is it some trauma from my childhood? Is it blah, 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 but whatever it is, right? Whatever it is, that's where the work is. And by the way, that's also where we grow. Right, the Kabbalists would go as deep as to say that many of these blockages are from a previous incarnation, or that they come from something very deep in the world that isn't necessarily just us in the sense that we think of ourselves. So, and in that sense, growing in the world and working on it and becoming more flowing is exactly what God wants us to do. That's why we were brought here in a sense, right? So, yeah. So. Then we kind of, yeah.
I have a weird technical question. When you think about the Zohar and what we're studying, and you talk about the Kabbalists, they do this and that, they look at just different passages, whether it's Isaiah or the Bible or whatever. So is the written text just what somebody compiled from all these other things that were like scribbled down or whatever, together certain pieces? It's not like there's one complete work. I mean, they didn't go through the
You mean
Torah.
the text of the Zohar? Or
Yeah, it's like because the Kabbalists just studied and came up, like they were creative. Oh, look at this word, look at,
Mhm.
they didn't go through it, I don't think, from Genesis through, and there might have been passages. So I'm trying to figure out, like when you explain to somebody, oh, I'm studying the Zohar or
Mhm.
Kabbalah, or it's like, it's just a way of thinking, and like this text that we're using is what somebody compiled to try to help us.
Well, a lot of people did. So yeah. So the thing about like I've spoken about this a little bit on how the Zohar was created. There's a whole other lecture, and there's doctorates upon doctorates that actually went halfway through a process of writing a doctorate. Then COVID hit and I had to go back to work, so I never completed it. But basically, that my teacher, professor at the university, one of the experts on this question of how the Zohar was written. So she's handling maybe, I don't know, hundreds of manuscripts. And because what happened is they had these schools of Kabbalists who wrote stuff, and a lot of the text, you can see a text in the Zohar, but actually, this line maybe was written in the 11th century, then the next paragraph was maybe written by someone else in the 12th century, in the 13th century. You see a text, you don't know that it was written by multiple groups and multiple people, and those texts were, of course, hand copied. And moving with the groups
and that's what I'm saying, the book that we're referencing now was just taken from all these
so they were going verse by verse, but it wasn't that orderly. And for example, you have one volume for, like in the traditional Zohar edition, they have one volume for Genesis, one volume for Exodus, and then one volume for Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, meaning that they were like, come on already, right? What happened was that, like I think I said this, at a certain point, print was invented in the 16th century, and people said, "Oh, let's print the Zohar." Actually, it was printed even before the Talmud, because all of a sudden, let's share the secrets and let's make some money from it too, right? We can sell copies to, who knows? Also, the Jesuit priests maybe wanted the copy, or whoever was there in Italy in the 16th century, Renaissance. Leonardo da Vinci, okay, everybody's like becoming excited about ancient knowledge and how we can bring it forth to the new era. See what I mean? It's all part of let's make the secret, Renaissance was a lot about, let's go back to like Rome, Greece, right? And the science, bring it out. So, let's also bring the secrets of the Jews, print it out, share it with the world, right? And the technology of print, just like we were like, oh my God, internet. Right, so print was like that. I don't have to sit and I can make 200 copies and send it everywhere. That's amazing, right? So then they only had a problem in Italy, the Jews who wanted to print it in Cremona and Mantova. Right? These are the two cities where they did it. And they have manuscripts and it's not exactly in order, and it's messed up. So I think they kind of invented the Zohar as we have it today from the, 10, 15 manuscripts that they had in Italy at the time. They sat there and you see that sometimes they stretch something or they cut something from here to there to make it fit the model that they wanted to do, which is like a midrash, which is you start with Genesis and you go systematically. Then by the time they got to the end, they didn't have enough, so they just okay. So and then there's many other manuscripts. So what we have is a tradition that we have lots of it. We understand that it was a very living and dynamic tradition, and the people who wrote it were like ADHD artists, mystics, so they weren't all that right. And however, that also what gives us this charm, because there were many other Kabbalistic books that were written, but none of them got to this kind of made this impact of a holy book. And by the way, it's very interesting, we should talk about that, that today, actually tomorrow, is Lag BaOmer. It's a holiday where we make a fire. And who is the big, who are we celebrating on Lag BaOmer? Why a fire? It's actually, and there's, I don't know if you know this, right near where I used to live. Actually, I was in the gym today at JCC, and I was listening to Israeli news when I'm jogging to pass the time, and like wonderful Israeli news, right? Optimistic.
Makes you wanna run.
The war is going on. So what were they talking about? That the ultra-Orthodox government confiscated the train station in the town, the big town near where we used to live, so that only the people who are going to Har Miron, to the mountain where they have this big feast with a fire, they're the ones who can use the train station, and the locals can't use their own train station. Because 200,000 people, it's the biggest gathering in the country, is going to this mountain in the Galilee to the Hilula, to the celebration, to the fiesta, to the day of the Santos Day, of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Because, and it's not a historic Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that they're worshiping. It's the one who wrote the Zohar. Because the Zohar wrote itself, like, as you see, as the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, there's like a narrative, the frame story of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, not the historic character who may have lived 2,000 years ago. No. Well, they don't think of it as two different entities, but we know that it's not the same person. But it's because the Zohar is so holy to all those people that they have to go. 2 years ago, a year before the war, there was a catastrophe. Many people, they were trampled, and I don't know if you know the news, because they've rearranged it. People were trampled on the way out, and they got killed, and right, 200,000 people in one. It's like, think about like big spiritual gatherings. It's huge for a country of 10 million, a country that has 10 million citizens. 200,000 of them are in one place to celebrate, because there's Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the creator of the Zohar. We know it was many people into the consciousness, okay, but according to tradition, it's one person who's in charge of this tradition. And the reason why there's fire is because of the story that the Zohar tells about the death of Rabbi Shimon, which is on that date, when he was going to depart the world, a ring of fire circulated his house, and only the very few students were allowed to go in to learn those secrets. I think I told that before. So the story of fire, okay, so it's a big deal. So that tradition, and I believe, and that's just me, from my very subjective me, that, you know, from my experience, from being 20 and being exposed to this, you see, you can think about it rationally. You can say this text, you learn it and you become more aware, but actually that this Rabbi Shimon lives through the many people who wrote this. And then when they wrote that book, they'd say, that's not me, Moishi, who lives in, I don't know where, Spain, or I'm channeling it through Rabbi Shimon. Mm-hmm. So if you want to believe it like in a spooky kind of way, okay, on a spooky level, not spooky, but spiritual kind of level, that this is a divine entity that we call Rabbi Shimon that is guiding this vibration of spirituality in the world. Just like
even a real person?
Yes, there was. Look, as far as we know, there was a historic Rabbi Shimon. He was one of the students of Rabbi Akiva. He was very zealot. He fought the reason why he went to the cave is because he was a zealot and the Romans wanted to kill him. Just like they killed Jesus and all the other troublemakers. troublemaker. We're gonna get rid of you. So he ran away to the cave and he sat there, but he was against the Roman Empire because he denounced the world. Like, I don't want this reality. And he went to the cave with his son, Rabbi Elazar, according to one of the two versions of the story. And then there's a fairy tale in the Talmud that he lived in the cave for 12 years. So is that fairy tale real? We don't know. I mean, is Moses real? Is Abraham real? Did the Exodus ever happen? See what is real, okay? But according to, but there is a level of what we call Rabbi Shimon the Tana, Rabbi Shimon the rabbinic sage of antiquity at the time of the Roman Empire, who was probably a real person. Are all the fairy tales that are told about him true? Did he really live in a cave and God gave him a miracle and he gave him a spring of water and a carob tree, which he and his son fed from for 12, 13 years? I don't know, I wasn't there, right? Okay, but then there's a whole other level of the story, which is Rabbi Shimon of the Zohar, and we know that the Zohar eventually is a creation of the 13th century, more or less, like more than 1,000 years later, 1,000 years later, to make it simple. And that's already, and then also we know that it's a made-up character. That all those people who sat in Spain and in France and in Morocco and in Israel and in Crete, and if one time you wanted to do like a tour of all the places where the Zohar was written, it's like the best tour. It's like all around the Mediterranean. Turkey, Italy, Crete, Spain, Morocco, Israel, like all around the Middle Eastern basin. Probably a fascinating tour. You can do it. Okay, a Kabbalistic tour. And or a series of tours, I don't know why. But okay,
It'll be next year's field trip. Okay?
well, I'm signing in, just bring in the funding and we're going, right? So no, but seriously, this could be a fascinating tour. In the Middle East, in the Mediterranean, in the footprints of the Zohar, from Spain to all those places. So, right, because when the Jews were in Spain were when they were dispersed all around because they got kicked out, all the Kabbalists had to go to all the different places. All right, so like we know that a certain part of the Zohar was kind of written in Crete, and another part was written over. It's like fascinating. So, right. So Rabbi Shimon of the Zohar, the one that 200,000 people are now going to celebrate his death, his annual Yortzeit, basically, right? Has become this beloved character because of the book, and it's really so on one level we have a text, we have these teachings. You can see it's kind of difficult, but you can get into it. You can get into the gist of it. You can kind of start to understand what they're teaching, make in a weird kind of way, in a very illogical way. It makes sense, right? Makes sense in a very nonsensical way, but it opens something up. If you've survived here long enough, you say, oh, this is something. I come here, I'm a little bit different. Come out of it, right? So one way to also say, like, no, there's actually a Rabbi Shimon vibration that channels this kind of wisdom into the world, and many people can connect to it, right, throughout the generations. Yeah, more questions or complaints about this?
So I'm just gonna do one follow-up. So that book that you showed us in the beginning with the yellow cover,
Yeah,
that's not the Zohar.
it is. It's just an English translation. It's an annotated English translation.
Of the whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, what's the whole thing? Because again,
Well, first volume, the second volume, and then the third.
right. So and then many other adjacent, the 3 volumes and then some, because they had other. Just became like 4 or 5 volumes with other.
Okay.
So basically, but you see, one of the questions is that it's for sure not all the manuscripts that exist in the world, but yes. So a certain rich family, wealthy family called the Pritzker family gave a stipend, among other things, gave a stipend to a certain Professor Daniel Matt, and then a team that he had for, I don't know, 2 decades. He sat, I don't know where, in Los Angeles or somewhere with his team, and they translated. First of all, they had to, like, where's the beginning, where's the end, how should we do it? It's not that simple. But then they basically, yes, they took the entire thing that is in the print, together with some appendixes and some
It just doesn't seem big enough to.
right.
carry.
But that book is just volume 1 out of like 50. I have it in my office. You can
So
come.
the yellow book is one about.
Is volume 1 out of like 12
Okay.
or
That's
8
my
or.
question, I was like, how could that?
Right, so no, that's just, I think it reaches all the way, like halfway, like maybe a third of the way into like the first, I think it only covers like Lech Lecha Vayera, it's like the first
Right, well, that's where I was.
3 or 4 portions of
What that
Genesis. Then it goes on and on and on. You're welcome to come to my office, it takes
So
a
you
whole
have the
shelf.
Thank you.
Right, so what they did is what you're seeing here, they translated the thing and annotated it
Right.
in a way that's very
No, I get
helpful.
that. I just didn't realize there were.
And you can
12
order it in Amazon and you don't need me anymore, you just learn it, right? So,
Okay. No, I
okay,
didn't know there were
yeah,
so many.
and it's very helpful, because if you actually, again, it's a translation and a lot of, but you can't, it really helps people in this country, who are English speakers, who want an entry into this very weird tradition, that is actually our mystical tradition, and we are allowed to, like, we're Jews. Also, you don't have to be a Jew to learn it, but you know, if you're a Jew and you speak some Hebrew or you learn it in Hebrew school and you understand the prayers, and it's ours to learn, right? Mm-hmm.
So we have this sort of distributed loose network of people who are exchanging text and ideas that eventually sort of get consolidated to be the Zohar. How this overlaps to some extent with the exchange of commentary and notes that's the Talmud as well.
Only that the Talmud is much older.
Talmud.
So the Talmud is older. The Talmud is a product of the first century's current era. The Talmud kind of reflects a period between 3rd century, 2nd, 3rd. I mean, if you count the Mishnah and the Talmud, the Mishnah is the first level of the Tanaic literature, the rabbinic, right? So that goes to like first, 2nd centuries, mostly Israel. And then the Talmud was written, well, there was a Babylonian Talmud written in Babylonia, and then what they call the Jerusalem or Palestinian Talmud that happened also in that part of the world, whatever you want to call it. And that was, you see, but the Talmud was codified even when they had, unlike the Zohar, which was never actually codified and canonized before the invention of print. The Talmud was written by hand, but was canonized as more or less a text as we know it today. Probably by the, I don't know, 6th, 7th century, it was already there.
Okay, so there's early medieval rabbinical,
right?
Side notes, marginalia, and the Kabbalistic tradition is, fundamentally later than that.
It doesn't mean that, you see, that the roots of Kabbalah aren't also ancient. In other words, the Zohar doesn't come out of nowhere. Okay, the Zohar, the 12, actually my teacher in university was able to show that the deepest texts that we have in the Zohar are actually 10th century and were probably written in Israel, Palestine. In other words, even the text, she has her ways to identify, but don't ask me exactly how. But even the Zohar itself, the text stretches for almost 500 years until it's printed. But Kabbalah, as a mystical spiritual tradition, goes much deeper than that, more ancient than that. Only that it wasn't maybe written or in the same way. The oldest Kabbalistic book that we have, Sefer Yetzirah, is probably dated to the 6th or 7th century, like influenced by early Islam, a little bit. One of the ways for us to know that the Zohar, and if you ask an ultra-Orthodox person about the Zohar, they tell you this is nonsense. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai wrote it in the cave 2,000 years ago. The reason, don't confuse me with the fact, the reason that there was no manuscript is because it was hidden and nobody just distributed it. But when you read it with a critical eye, you realize that it couldn't have been, that it's, you know, it is a later text. One of the ways to know it is because they are quoting the Talmud. And then you can tell, you know, first of all, there were no manuscripts before the 13th century. So, hello, what, for 1,000 years, this beautiful thing was hidden, and there's no quotation from it, and there's no reference to it. No one ever spoke about it. For 1,000 years, really? It was hiding in a cave? Come on. No, it was created then, but it's based on older traditions. And one of the ways to, so there's many ways to know, because it's talking about scientific inventions that didn't exist, you know, because you can tell that it's influenced by Christian thought and a Muslim thought, and that didn't exist beforehand. That you can, there's ways to know if you're an academic, right? When a book was kind of written and where, more or less. So yeah, and a lot of those notes in the annotated version, if that interests you, you will be able to see that every Zohar text alludes to many other texts. That the Bible, the Talmud, the Midrash, okay, so yeah, any more questions? On Zoom maybe too, I don't know. Then, so you see, so when I study the Zohar, I kind of, yes, I have a lot of my study has been in the academic world. So I got a master's from Tel Aviv University, I got first a bachelor, then I started a PhD. So I do bring a critical eye, and I think it's important for us people, we live in this, to know where we came from and what this text, where it's from and how it came to be. But also, I'm not teaching here as this is not an academic course. I'm teaching this as someone who tries to take a spiritual meaning out of this text and use it for my life as a living tradition of self, whatever, introspection, growth, learning a spiritual language that help us get closer to whatever you want to call it, the source of life, God, ourselves, blah blah blah, all this, right? So both. And this is a house of God. This is a holy community. We don't have to just be academics here, right? So a little bit about next year, in a little time that we have left. So now we're going on a break. ROSH-ESTHER is officially going on a break today. This year was very experimental. The model that I'm offering, that I'm suggesting for next year, that it'll start after the high holidays, so late October. The ROSH-ESTHER, you know, the kind of like the track of spirituality or Jewish spirituality in Temple Sinai, of Temple Sinai. So give it a little bit more order. It'll run for 4 mini semesters, each one being either 5 or 6 weeks long. Okay, so people can choose to only take, but so because you know a whole semester is hard to commit to, and one class isn't enough. So if you commit I can commit for 6 weeks, and then I can reconsider. Then I can go to Florida. I can come back, whatever. Okay. However, I'm not going to be teaching it all either. One of the things that I'm trying to do is to expand who teaches here. So there's going to be, so out of the 4, I'll be teaching 2, maybe 2 and 3, 2 and 4 possibly. Whereas 1 and 3 will be taught by 2 other teachers. So you guys can get a broader picture. So it's not final, but what I'm thinking about now is actually my wife, Feliza, has studied the Song of Songs for many years and wrote a play about it and has many. So she was interested in offering a mini semester about secrets of that book, which is very mystical, but also very beautiful, and the love you know, book of the Bible, etc. And then there's a guy in town, but I'd have to get his final. He's a Sufi, and he will actually give us an introduction to Sufi mysticism, which is Muslim mysticism, but it's very closely connected with Kabbalah. Whirling dervishes, all that world. Okay. So that'll be the 2 other teachers who aren't me, and then I'll be teaching 2 semesters. Things like that you already experienced. Zohar, names of God.
You say two semesters, are you talking about 2 years?
No, I'm talking 4 mini semesters over the stretch of 1 year. So if a semester usually is like 12 classes, right, sessions, there'll be 4 mini semesters,
Okay.
right, over the stretch of between, let's say, October and June. Right, and then you'll get the program and you can say, I'm committing for, I'm lining up for these 5
So
sessions.
they're not overlapping.
No, they're gonna be at this time, Wednesday, 7 PM, one after the other, being not me, not me, right? Teaching, okay.
Who, what, me?
Yeah, me and me, it'll be me, Ma, Ele, and what, right? So that's kind of, then, you know, then we see what kind of, what we connect. So also giving a little more diversity to who teaches here. And then there'll be also another track on Thursday morning. But that's not gonna be spirituality and mysticism per se. It's gonna be other things like Talmud and maybe Musar and different teachers will be teaching that as well. So it's not final. We still have to run it also by the adult ed committee and just get approved. But it's in work in progress. But I'm giving you the heads up. So we want to give many opportunities for learning for adults at Temple Sinai. I think it's very important. The Royal League thinks it's very important. Me and my team and I, and the adult ed committee. All right, so that's kind of like thought for developing the field. So,
In the beginning of this year, some of the religious school teachers were here.
yeah.
Do you think that they'll think about starting to incorporate some of this mindset into their curriculum?
If they so wish, I mean, once the new curriculum is advertised, I will run it by them again, and I'll invite them.
No, but I mean, it's like, how do we bring this to like younger people?
Well,
Like,
you
how do
know,
start to-
first of all, you know what they say, you don't teach Kabbalah before you're 40.
Well,
you don't-
no, but this
So
is us.
I believe I believe that again, like and there is something to, you know, teaching young people like the basic layers of Judaism so that they can build upon once they're ready to learn Kabbalah. I think that first of all, many of them, so Rachel Sidebottom, she learned Jewish mindfulness, she incorporates that already. A lot of them already incorporates different things like that. Look, and again, I don't force, like, I'm not going to force anyone to be in this class, but we're going to offer to them, and if they sit here and they learn, I'm sure that they will automatically, because these things just happen.
Right.
If you internalize, I don't expect them to teach that to the children necessarily, but we see it in a more kind of like a Zohari kind of way. If people in Temple Sinai, whether they're teachers in the Hebrew school or not, if that kind of spirituality grows and becomes some part of the language, because some of the people do come and they become ambassadors of that. I mean, you see that when I lead prayer on Friday nights, I never teach that exactly, but I will say, let's stop and breathe. Let's not do it this automatically. I kind of try to, in a more subtle way, and kind of like bring that kind of awareness and spirituality. We're not just hanging out here. This is not just a cultural thing that we do. This is actual spiritual worship, right? That, again, with a constriction of this is a tradition and this is what people here do, and this is the parts of prayer that we have. But the Kabbalists have been doing that for generations. They go to the synagogue, they pray with everybody else, but their internal world is completely different, right? So listen, we're not even inventing that. It's just how it was. So, right? So I think that premise of spirituality and understanding Judaism to be a spiritual path, a serious one, right? That is, and some people say, this is not for me. What is all this stuff? I don't hold this me and mom. No, I just want to be a cultural Jew. I'm a Reformed Jew. Don't confuse me with these things. That's fine. I'm also not saying that Temple Sinai should adopt this as its theology, because it's not at all what I'm saying. I'm very whatever. There's 16 different reasons why people come through the door here. Which is fine. But I happen to believe that taking our Judaism seriously as a spiritual path and getting the language to do so and to, right, is to me, that's what brought me back into being an active Jew. So trying to share it with others. So this is basically the idea behind the whole thing. And if you guys find this to be useful and interesting and inspiring, then, you know, keep coming and bring a friend and, you know, tell people this is cool. This is, you know, so that this kind of, yeah. So there are ways to, I think, and you know, in the end, the application of these complex teachings are very, very simple. Like I always say, be conscious, be kind, be humble. Remember that this world is being constantly created. Right? Be like there's a few, you know, in the end, the application of it is not, it's actually the opposite from rocket science. Like very simple, right? So, you know, just try to be that thing as much as we can, you know?
It's paradoxical, right? I mean, like, it is simple, but there's this complexity there in the simplicity of that.
Right.
And you can't get there without, I mean, to me, without a format like this to talk about the more, I guess, technical side, to be able, okay, now, forget all that.
Right.
Speak.
Right.
You
Like
almost have to, it's part of the process to get.
right, which is one way that you, right, also, you know, hands on, you know, wax on, wax off, right, any kind of like, teaching, right, that has to do with all sorts of elaborate practice and learning, and in the end, you throw it away, or you, right, it becomes part of you, you don't need the text anymore, and, right, so we have a Jewish way, which, you know, maybe, and who knows, maybe these Kabbalists also had dances and but what we had left, what is the text, right? So we're kind of like using them to, yeah, I agree. So that sometimes the simplicity is achieved by complexity, and sometimes the other way around. And very okay. So this has been. Thank you guys for being my partners in this amazing, you know, journey of 2 semesters. To the end, which means that you're like, either you have nothing better to do, or you're, you know. So thank you, people on Zoom as well, and so we'll see. I mean, we'll see each other around, you know, town and here at Temple. But ROSH-ESTHER will reconvene again on October 22nd.
The whole of the bagel, what are we gonna do?
What are we gonna do? So whole of the bagel continues. So there's one more session, the grand finale with me on Sunday, with all the bagel, and we're already working ferociously on next year. All the bagel, I think, will start, unlike this, it will start in September. And there's a real, and the first semester is almost lined up already with really, really great speakers and programs. And there's going to be a whole series around the high holidays about sin and forgiveness, but we're going to bring a different perspective, like Christian, Muslim, Far Eastern, Jewish perspective on sin and forgiveness around the high holidays, for example, and so weiter and so weiter. Yeah, I don't know why German is coming to me right now, but so on and so forth. So that will really, there's a really cool assembly of speakers. Some of them are congregates, some of them are from around town, some of them are clergy, etc. So yeah, we're working on whole of the bagel. Isn't the only thing is that we have to find some non-gluten food. Just bagel is unhealthy. What about yogurt and cranberries and salad, or I don't know what, but we have to. The whole of the salad. All right. So God bless you all. God bless the United States of America. See you all sometime soon, I hope. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi.
Can I ask a quick question, Rabbi?
What's that?
Can I ask a question? Where do the
Just a
one,
minute. Just a minute. Hang on. What?
the sessions that we've missed, where do they reside if we want to see them? I know you said.
Allegedly, they're on YouTube on the website. I don't know if they're up to speed of putting them on. Were you looking for them?
They are one whole thing, you just scroll through each
Yeah.
session.
Okay, it's on the website under adult
Adult
education.
education. It should be
Okay.
somewhere there. And
Okay,
yeah.
Thank
Not
you.
exactly. Yeah. Bye, guys. See ya.